Penguins, snowy birds that survive in some of the harshest environments known to man. But not all of them live in a winter wonderland. Meet Africa's only penguin. These bubbly birds are living on top of one of the busiest cities in South Africa, Cape Town, causing chaos wherever they roam. But with their fragile species under threat, their future is bleak.
Oh, buddy.
Meet the heroes who've stepped in to help.
This penguin was probably bitten around the back of the neck and shaken a little bit. You don't want to hit a blood vessel.
This dedicated team are on hand 24/7 in Africa's busiest emergency department for penguins.
We're trying absolutely everything.
They rescue the weak and desperate.
It's not looking good at this point. Hello.
Rehab them with lots of TLC.
Oh, they just melt my little heart. I love these little guys.
To get them back into the wild where they belong.
They are going to start a whole new life.
This is the story of an extraordinary relationship between penguins and people. At the Penguin A&E. This harsh, beautiful coastline on the southwesterly tip of South Africa plays home to one of the best-loved animals on Earth, the African penguin. One of the smallest of the Southern Hemisphere's penguin species, these little fellas are big in personality. But there's a problem for their idyllic way of life down here, because the South African penguins have set up camp in the mainland colonies of Boulders Beach and Stony Point, a stone's throw from the 4 million inhabitants of bustling Cape Town. Stony Point used to be the site of an old whaling station in beautiful Betty's Bay and is home to one of the largest penguin colonies in South Africa. The first penguins arrived here in 1982 after man had pretty much destroyed their natural nesting habitat on the nearby islands. But mankind was already here too, and when people and penguins fight over the same territory, the story is always the same. The penguins lose. The decline in African penguin numbers has been devastating, from over 4 million in 1800 to just 50,000 today. But now, these plucky little penguins have help on their side. Their own dedicated team of heroes, doggedly committed to watching their feathery backs.
Penguins normally come here and it is a nesting area for them.
Penguin rescuer Mark is one of them. His job, to collect and protect penguin eggs that have been laid too far from the colony.
Okay, buddy. Okay.
Out here, there's no protection in numbers, and ultimately, these eggs will be snaffled up by roving seagulls, dogs, cats, and even monkeys.
If the egg is extremely white, then we know it's quite a fresh egg, but these eggs, as you can see from the blood, I'd say they're about 2 or 3 weeks old.
So, these abandoned eggs are gently gathered and sent into special protection at Penguin A&E. A dedicated hospital 40 miles along the coast, Sankob Seabird Sanctuary lies cradled in the shadow of Table Mountain. Vet Natasha and her dedicated team are leading the drive to save the penguins.
We deal with a lot of emergencies. We can have open wounds, birds with fish hooks in their stomachs. It's insane what can walk in the door.
Each year, more than 1,500 African penguins come through the doors here. And just like a human hospital, they have an operating theatre.
Heart rate okay?
And an intensive care unit.
The next 24 hours for that bird is going to be very, very important.
There's a rehab ward and a nursery.
The little chicks, you'll start hearing them peeping, so it's always nice to talk back to them.
It's extremely hard work, but the rewards are immense.
They're just hilarious. When you're having a bad day, they'll all run up to you wanting to give you a cuddle.
With penguin numbers in the wild dropping by more than 90% over the last century, the team know they've a big task ahead.
if we're not doing everything we can, then we're going to be responsible when they're extinct.
Here is where our orphan eggs will finally get to start a brand new life.
Obviously, hand raising an endangered species is not a walk in the park, but it's an amazing feeling to be able to hatch a little chick out of an egg and 3 months later just have a little yes moment when it's released back into the wild.
In the wild, African penguins usually mate for life and return to the same site to reproduce twice a year, laying 2 eggs, which take 40 days to hatch. But when the eggs are abandoned, it's the sandcob experts who become mum and dad.
All right, so I'm going to take the first one out.
So far this season, 42 eggs have been rescued.
Egg number 5.
When each egg arrives, it's measured, weighed, and then checked for signs of life.
Okay, 14.
Today's eggs are a mixed bag.
That what I'm looking at there, I can't tell you if it is infertile or fertile. We'll give it a week to see if there's any development. Haha. All right, we've got a kidney-shaped embryo. That's the little penguin.
Then it's into an incubator until it's ready to hatch.
We incubate our penguin eggs at 36.5 degrees Celsius and 45% humidity. What's really great about these incubators is they roll the eggs for us.
For Romy, playing surrogate mum to these precious little eggs is the highlight of her job.
I love these little guys, just to be able to especially work with the little chicks. They just look at you with their big eyes, and for me that's it. They got me. They're little soul catchers. Yeah.
This penguin hospital was one of the first to develop a chick rearing unit, and they go to extraordinary lengths to protect these precious new arrivals from disease.
We don't take chances up here. We have to be so careful with all of these chicks.
Everything is cleaned and disinfected.
Yeah, we just make sure we're doing everything possible to not infect them.
But all the hard work pays off when a new generation breaks out into the big wide world.
So this little chick is a day old. He hatched yesterday. Today is going to be his first day on proper formula, and he's going to now start following the chick rearing unit regime.
There are now 14 little chicks in baskets, and each is fed a fish smoothie type formula, similar to that regurgitated by mum and dad in the wild.
Before I feed him the formula, I'm just going to feel the belly just to make sure that they're not bloated and that there is still space. So he's fine. You can see there's space in there. There we go. And then we can just finish tubing.
But this little chick, nicknamed Humphrey, doesn't seem to be doing so well.
I'm a little bit concerned about this chick. He's not giving me a feeding response and he's not very vocal. And you can actually hear there's a lot of chicks the same age that are quite vocal around him.
The first 7 days of a little chick's life are critical, and many don't survive. So Romy decides to put Humphrey in an incubator and keep him under watch. Fortunately, the others, like Hercules here, seem to be doing just fine for now. But soon, the feel-good factor here in Penguin A&E will be shattered as a shark attack victim pushes everyone's life-saving skills to the very limit. At Penguin A&E, all hands are on deck. This bird has just arrived with terrible wounds on his neck, and rehabber Marna suspects he's been bitten by a shark.
As you can see, he's got his entire throat exposed. That is actually flesh down there. It should be covered by skin and feathers and all of that. In the corner, you can see an air sac. It's exposed, which is not great. That's like being a human with a part of your lung exposed.
From the shores of Cape Town to Gansbaai, 100 miles down the coast, the great white shark population is one of the most concentrated on the planet. And, along with seals, penguins are also on the menu. The bird's not in a good way, so the team decide to operate. He's a fighter, so we've named him Tyson.
Heart rate okay?
Yeah, the heart rate is fine.
The dark feathering on Tyson's head means he's under a year old and yet to become an adult. So the staff are trying to do everything they can to help him. But first, they need to put him under with an anaesthetic.
So we're hoping with these series of operations that the skin will heal a little nicer and won't make it so difficult for him to swallow.
Vet Natasha is at the sharp end, dealing with terrible wounds to his neck.
Heart rate okay?
It's touch and go, but with African penguins being so critically endangered, every penguin counts. So they're trying all they can to give Tyson a fighting chance.
This is pretty bad. The wound is very deep.
Things are looking bleak, and then it gets a whole lot worse. Insai is struggling to detect a heartbeat.
But his breathing is very shallow.
Everyone's rooting for Tyson to pull through. He's a true fighter, but things aren't looking good.
Although the wound was very extensive, we were very hopeful. We do have quite a few very large wounds that do very well. But unfortunately, you can't save every bird that walks through the door, and some are just too severe.
Sadly, that was one fight that was just too much, even for Tyson. At just past midday, he's pronounced dead. "5:30 a.m. and 60 miles south of the Penguin Hospital at the picturesque Stony Point colony, thousands of South African penguins are getting ready for a new day. They're nicknamed jackass penguins as their braying sounds so much like a donkey's. What a racket! Penguin Ranger Yvonne is responsible for the health of the colony and is doing her rounds to see if any injured birds have washed up overnight.
On this rocky area, we do find dead penguins. It could be from seals or sharks with bite marks and ripping pieces. Usually with a shark, you will only get a flipper. The rest is gone. With your seal, you will get the stomach rip open, and then you sort of know it's a seal. Seals don't really go for the penguin meat as such, but for the kilogram of fish in the stomach. So they actually start getting too lazy to go hunt for their own fish.
But the biggest risk to the African penguin's future is man, from oil spills to using the ocean like a rubbish dump.
Walking 25 meters, already got a plastic 2-liter cool drink that I've collected. This is fishing line entanglement. This is the death of most sea life. This is poison for the marine life.
But despite no end of creatures out to get them, penguins always seem to look on the bright side of life.
They are funny, they are social birds, they are dedicated parents, they're dedicated life partners. They've got a sense of humor, I mean, make no mistake. They are skillful in the water, like swimming at full speed, and they can turn on a tikkie, and they work in a group together. And then on the rocks, as clumsy as they are, they're actually quite brilliant, and it's amazing to watch them.
Penguins breed twice a year at Stony Point and lay their eggs in sheltered places around the colony.
She's on an egg, that's good.
But if they're laid in dangerous locations, they get removed and sent to the Penguin Hospital for hatching.
What I see from here is one penguin on a nest, sitting quite tight. The nest itself is in proximity to the parking area where we've got the vehicles and the tourists. It is very unsafe.
And everyone at Penguin A&E does their best to make sure that each egg rescued from the colony can be hand-reared into a healthy chick.
There you are, and that's you all done.
The latest batch of chicks have arrived at the hospital. Romy wants them to immediately feel as comfortable as possible.
So each of our chicks will give a little teddy too, just for a little bit of company, something to cuddle up against.
Romy's job is to mimic Mum and Dad's behaviour as if they were in a colony in the wild.
There
And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a V over the beak. So if in the wild the chick would go up into the parent's mouth or tap on the side, and then the parent would open and the chick would go inside, and the parent would regurgitate the food into the chick's mouth. So just having that V, the chick pushes up into it and it'll start begging, and then I can tube. This is just a nice indicator of a healthy chick that they are hungry and they are begging.
One chick, Hopscotch, is giving Romy cause for concern, so she calls vet Natasha to take a closer look.
His foot is facing in a bit, and when he lies down, it's pushed behind. So we're trying to see if we can hobble just so he doesn't keep lying on it.
Hopscotch's feet seem to be setting at a strange angle, so it's vital to nip this in the bud while the bones haven't yet set.
You tape them together so that they stay like that. So.
And when penguins are this tiny, sticky tape works better than a plaster cast. Only time will tell if little Hopscotch can make a full recovery. It's 8 a.m, and while some of the staff at Penguin A&E are busy preparing fish smoothies for the birds,
Yum.
on the other side of the Penguin Hospital, hand rearer Dylan has got his hands full with two little fluff balls. They were brought in as abandoned chicks from Stony Point. On the right is the gorgeous Toby, and this little cutie is Papsnook, which is Afrikaans for floppy fish.
Papsnook had absolutely no muscle in his bottom half of his body. So he couldn't walk, he couldn't stand, he just lay around there all day. Toby over here, he had some joint problems, so he was also not capable of walking. So since they've been here, we've been doing walking therapy. So we'd move their legs around as if it's a bicycle, and then we'd use this ramp for some walking therapy in the water. So they're forced to use their behind legs. And about 2 weeks ago, this wasn't happening. It was impossible. They wouldn't even be able to take one step without falling over. So these two fellas have really come a long way.
After they've dried off, Dylan introduces them to their new foster parents. A week later, and Toby has lost his fluff and become a toddler, known as a blue, but his posture is giving Dylan cause for concern.
He's developed a hunch now, which is not good for penguins at all. They generally, in my experience, do not get released back into the wild.
Dylan's booked Toby in for an X-ray with vet Natasha to get to the root of the problem.
Okay, head up this end. X-ray.
But things aren't looking good.
Unfortunately, he does have a pronounced curvature, so it is narrowing that chest cavity quite a lot. Although the X-rays aren't the worst X-rays I've seen, the bird itself actually looks pretty awful. He's very hunched over. He has a number of other issues, such as his feather quality, his chest sounds pretty terrible. If that curvature downwards is any more pronounced, then there's a definite clinical effect on the lungs.
The staff feel the kindest thing is to put Toby to sleep.
It was a real tough decision. We had to, for the good of the bird. It was just in so much pain, and it wouldn't have fared in the wild.
When a juvenile penguin or blue becomes an adult, they have what's known as a catastrophic molt. They lose their feathers all at once.
Sometimes it takes more than one molt for them to get a full, beautiful tuxedo. And then when they do become adults, every year, once a year, they will molt.
Molting is a very dangerous time for a penguin. They're no longer able to swim and hunt for fish as they aren't waterproof, so they can starve to death if their molt takes longer than the average 3 weeks. So whenever the Penguin Hospital sees what they call an arrested molter, that's one whose molt is taking too long, they look after them until they've got a brand new tuxedo.
2 arrested molters. Well done.
When they're molting, the birds become full of hormones and their behaviour can become quite erratic.
Now that they are molting, they're not meant to be swimming. They know this themselves, it's in their instincts. So if you throw them in the water, they're going to freak out because they know they are going to have cold patches on them, naturally. So they will try and jump out as fast as possible. But we really have to swim them because their feathers have degraded a lot and have become stringy, and they poop on it as well.
So only when their bottoms are clean is it time to pick up one of these penguins. One arrested molter who was brought in a few days ago from Stony Point is Bruiser. He has puncture wounds on his stomach and feet, which could be from a seal or shark, which Bruiser managed to fight off.
He has had pre-medication before the anaesthetic to make him go down a bit easier and to give him a bit of pain relief as well. I don't think he knows that though, because he is wiggling quite a lot.
Despite his wounds, Bruiser is still very feisty and is taking a while to go under anaesthetic so that vet Natasha can inspect his injuries.
One nice wound here. Looks like a puncture wound of some sort. Could be a tooth. He's got quite a nice wound on this foot as well. The amount of blood he had over him the first day he came in was pretty scary. It looked like a little penguin massacre had gone on. And he also couldn't stand. Yeah, so we'll let him molt. So he's got 3 weeks. He can molt and have some antibiotics on board for this wound and the infection that's in the soft tissue. Okay, head up this end.
Natasha decides to X-ray Bruiser to see the extent of his wounds. Unfortunately, it's not looking good.
Oh, right. There's been an infection from the wound over the foot. That infection has tunnelled down effectively and eaten through the bone, which may mean we will amputate the toe.
Bruiser is in good hands, but he's still not out of danger. At Penguin A&E, saving the life of every single African penguin counts. Numbers have declined from over 4 million in the 19th century to just 50,000 today. But sometimes staff have to put birds to sleep to end their suffering. Toby and Papsnook were abandoned chicks from Stony Point, and although the staff did their best for little Toby, he was developing a hunchback that would have made it impossible to survive in the wild, so they had to let him go. And Papsnook's future also hangs in the balance.
Papsnook's posture isn't the greatest at the moment. He's sitting on his bum quite often, which does damage the feathers and the waterproofing.
He's very relaxed, breathing's nice and steady.
So Dylan sent him to see Natasha for an X-ray.
X-ray!
It's soon clear why poor little Papsnook can't stand up properly.
So you can see this is the femur in our penguin. You can see that it does flare out as it does naturally on the other penguins, but you can see there's a bit of bony destruction here, and you can't see that nice little ball that's sitting in the hip joint. The other side is relatively normal. You can see it flaring out and forming a ball.
And his left flipper is also damaged.
You can see with this flipper, it looks completely different to the other one. And there's been a lot of bony destruction and bony remodelling.
Papsnook's unsteady walking is worrying everyone, and if he doesn't show signs of improvement soon, he could well go the same way as Toby. With such major bone damage, there's not much the staff can do except treat him with infrared light therapy.
We need to see an improvement because this is his last chance.
The infrared delivers energy straight to his cells, stimulating healing and relieving pain, but Papsnook is showing severe signs of stress.
So he's getting really hot, so he's panting, and it's just unwanted stress. So we're going to cut this session a little bit short so we can get him back into his pen so he can calm down a bit.
Pap Snook's life is hanging by a thread. If he doesn't respond to the infrared treatment, the staff will have to put him to sleep. And no one wants that.
We're all rooting for this bird. If he survives, if he can be released, he's going to be a miracle penguin.
The staff at Penguin A&E in Cape Town do their best to save the life of every African penguin in an effort to bring the species back from the brink of extinction. It's 12 noon and time for the penguins to get their dinner.
Come on then.
Every day they get through over 100 kilos of sardines, between the 300 of them.
So he's just literally super hungry.
Once their food is digested, the healthier birds cool off in the early afternoon by going for a swim.
1, 2, 3.
But poor little Pap Snook has been too weak for the pool and instead has been undergoing infrared light therapy for the past week. And it seems to be doing the trick. Today is his first time allowed back in the water.
There he is, Pap Snook.
He's hesitant to begin with, but then amazes the staff with his agility.
There he is, he's the one with the yellow tag on. Oh, that's so cool, he's not even frightened.
Despite the odds, Pap Snook is surprising everyone here with his incredible progress in the rehab pools.
Pap Snook. He's using his left flipper just as much as his other one. I've never seen it so flexible before. Like he's got energy. There we go.
The issue for me is that he's using the right flipper a lot more than the left, which we know he had an issue with the left flipper. Let's see, we can chase him. I'm being a seal. He's actually moving pretty fast, and he seems quite alert, quite with it.
So, I mean, I really can't believe how well he's doing. A few weeks ago, he was terrible. He was just sitting in the pen, and now he is preening. I mean, look how active he is in the pool. He's just amazing.
If Pap Snook continues to improve at this rate, he should be able to be released in a few weeks. It's the morning shift in Penguin A&E. And Bruiser, the arrested molter who was brought in after a suspected fight with a seal, has now been in hospital for 2 weeks. He's finished molting and is happily enjoying swim time in the rehab pools. The strong antibiotics are containing the infection in his foot, but he's got a long way to go.
He is still walking well, eating well, looking absolutely like the strongest penguin in the world. But if the infection has moved up to the bone, if that whole long bone begins to get eaten away, it won't be a viable penguin for release because he won't have any legs to stand on, effectively.
The team want to X-ray Bruiser again to see how his wounds are healing, but as always, he'd rather have a scrap. The fact that Bruiser's still so wild and full of energy makes him a great candidate for release.
If we can get him still and do it conscious, that's going to be the best thing.
Natasha's going to X-ray him without putting him under. If she can catch him.
Flipper slap to death. Oh, thank you. So this actually does look quite a lot better. It looks not quite completely gone, we'll still keep him on the antibiotics, but it looks like it's calmed down quite a lot. If you saw this on a cat or a dog or a human, you'd say it's a pretty grave prognosis, but our penguins are very hardy and they can survive with pretty severe changes to their bone.
Against all the odds, feisty Bruiser has come back from the brink and is one step away from release.
Yeah, he's looking brilliant.
Now, they've just got to get him back in his box. Easier said than done.
And she's managing to evade inside quite well.
It's been 2 weeks since the first hatchling was born in the chick rearing unit, and intern Catherine has her hands full, tending to the new arrivals every whim. 20 chicks have hatched so far, with 22 eggs left to go. The new arrivals are being cared for separately in their little baskets. This cutie was born just 4 hours ago and won't open his eyes for a week. And just like any baby, they cry or squeak when they want attention, or another fish smoothie. Percy, the first chick to hatch, has now almost doubled in size.
He's doing really well, he's really healthy, and he weighs over 300 grams now. He's very vocal, he's always screaming for more food, he gets quite feisty as well, and overexcited when he sees the fish.
And the staff are doing everything that a good mum and dad should, from feeding him to wiping his bottom. Earlier, little Hopscotch had to have his legs set with sticky tape so that they would grow properly. And after a week of therapy and regular exercise, he's also coming on in leaps and bounds.
We used some tape to kind of tape it together to create the leg to get in the right place. And after about a week, it seems to have improved. We massage it at every feed just to kind of get the blood flowing, and hopefully that will help it go straight. But it's looking a lot better, and it puts a lot more pressure on it, and the same as the other leg. So we're very happy with the improvement.
But while most of the chicks that have hatched so far are doing well, poor little Humphrey has had to be moved into an incubator. Romy suspected something wasn't right when he wasn't being vocal and had diarrhoea. Vet Natasha is called in to see if there's anything that can be done to save him.
He went off his food and he was quite lethargic, so we started him on a course of antibiotic treatment. He was doing really well, he was really vocal, he was eating his food really well and looking great. And on the last day of the antibiotic course, when we decided that he was doing really well, he, just before his feed, suddenly rolled onto his back and the chick had died. But we have 19 chicks still with us and another 18 still waiting to hatch. So we're hoping that we're going to get a few more eggs in and it's going to be a really long chick season.
This is the hospital's home pen. It's so called because it contains 36 African penguins that can't be released back into the wild. And it's not called their 5-star hotel for nothing. The birds here can sun themselves by the pool, enjoy sushi platters, and generally live life to the max. Each of the permanent residents here has something special about them. Some have deformed beaks, others are missing flippers, and some are just too tame.
That's like a mating thing. You're being very inappropriate.
Rocky, a northern rockhopper, is the queen bee on the block. She overshot on a swim from a sub-Antarctic island and has recently adopted 2 swift terns as her surrogate children. Head rehabber Nikki finds it all very touching.
She sort of follows them around and does that whole honking sound, you know, and it's almost like she's telling them off. And they talk back to her, and the dynamic between them is so hilarious. And you can hear them in the background. They kind of twitter away to each other, and they're always together. And she follows them, and who knows what they're saying. She hates the African penguins, and whenever they're too close to her, she just wants to bite them. She definitely recognizes that she's different to the Africans, and she probably thinks that she's much more superior.
And as a so-called ambassador bird, Rocky's one of the few penguins who are allowed to roam freely around the hospital. But she takes it all in her stride.
It's really just like a soap opera. You come in here and any given day and someone will be up to something. You can literally sit in here and just watch them. You obviously have to get to know their personalities and get to know who's who, because to the normal person, they all look the same. This is Shadow. She's paired up with Beak Boy, and his beak is pretty ugly and it kind of crosses over like that. And he kind of looks like he's got this underbite going on. We've had some affairs and things like that happening here, where you go, oh, I thought that one was with that one, but they're kind of doing a bit of a swapsy.
And just like humans, penguins come in all shapes and sizes.
So the two interesting penguins we have in here, they're same sex, both female, and their names are Jill and Lambert. They've been together for several years now. They have a really, really strong bond. Lambert is easy to spot because she looks like a teapot. Her flipper is actually fused in that position from an injury. So it looks like she's just holding her spout up, if you like.
And then there's this cool dude, Winston, the ladies' man of the pen.
We've got Winston. He's with Kia, but he is a Casanova of note. And when he doesn't walk, he kind of has this jog, you know, but he is like the man in here. He's so gorgeous, very handsome-looking penguin. But he's been observed mating with other females as well. So poor Kia, I don't think she knows what to do with him. And she kind of tries to chase him back to the nest and try and keep him in the corner.
As well as the 36 permanent penguins in home pen, there can be as many as 300 others going through the rehab process at any one time. And once a penguin is thought to be healthy enough to return to the ocean, they are swum, weighed and tested to see if they're fit for release. One little bluebird, the name for penguins under a year old, that has captured the hearts of the staff but seems to annoy all the other penguins, is Squeaky, as he never pipes down.
A month or two ago, we got an abandoned chicken whose parents abandoned him because they were molting. So they couldn't swim in the oceans and get fish to feed their babies with. He's very vocal. He's more vocal than chicks that have hatched here and have never seen the wild. Every so often we do encounter a bird like this and we try and take a step back and give it no extra attention whatsoever.
It's a good sign that Squeaky is so vocal, as it shows he's healthy. But the staff are concerned that he's only squeaking around people.
Most probably won't be able to be released because it will come up to the beach and approach people for food.
I'll feed them in a moment. He just wants love and food, so that's why he's doing that, because he wants food, he's hungry.
He just cries all the time and comes over and tries to, kind of a bit of a pain, because he tries to get in your way while you're trying to do something else. It's quite heartbreaking to push them away because they just want some love, but we can't give them any love. Otherwise they won't be wild penguins anymore.
But constant shrieking isn't Squeaky's only problem. He's also developed a severe condition called bumblefoot due to walking on unnatural surfaces. The staff do their best to treat it, but it's a race against time to get little Squeaky back to the ocean before it's too late. Once a week, the Penguin Hospital prepares for their favourite time, the culmination of all their hard work. It's the day that their healthy penguins are tested to see if they can be returned to the wild, to bolster the nearby wild colonies of Boulders Beach and Stony Point.
We're actually releasing 27 penguins today, which is quite a big number, so we're quite proud.
Okay, so he is for release.
Before we know if they are going to be released, we check the bloods, we check the feathers, and we check the weights.
Okay.
And after 2 months rehabilitation, since being brought in from a probable fight with a seal, Bruiser has amazed the staff with his progress. But will he be joining the other healthy birds back where they belong in the Atlantic? It's time for Romy to check his feather quality. Bruiser's not happy again.
Very, very strong. It's looking good so far.
Obviously, it's never nice for a penguin to be restrained like this, so I try and do it as quick as possible. Feathers are looking really, really beautiful. The down is nice and dry. You can say grade good.
It's vital a penguin has healthy, waterproof feathers to survive in the wild, hunt for fish and escape attackers. So Bruiser has every right to be pleased with himself. It's now little Squeaky's turn to be graded. His constant squeaking has been driving the staff and other penguins to distraction. More worryingly, he has been in danger of developing too close a bond with humans. Head rehabber Nikki is now hoping he meets all the release criteria, as keeping him here any longer could mean he becomes too tame to ever see the ocean.
You're very noisy. And of course he's developed bumblefoot while he's been here, but he's good to go this week.
And not a moment too soon. The next thing these lucky birds will see is this, the wild colony of Stony Point on the other side of Cape Town. And for Squeaky, it'll also be the first time he's ever seen the sea or the sky.
Our centre is covered by shade glass. Now, shade glass is there to protect them. But unfortunately, what it also does is covers the sky from it, hides the sky. And I think because these penguins, some of them come here as really small chicks and they come from a burrow. And from the burrow, they get put into the centre. Having a huge sky above them might be quite a thrilling experience, even probably a bit scary. I think that experience is very freeing for them, which is what we want.
60 miles south, Yvonne and her team are preparing for the big release day.
A lot of blood, sweat and tears goes into a release, and just getting the birds to this stage takes a lot out of you. You have a big sigh of relief when you get to go to a place where you know the birds will be at peace. Obviously a little bit sad, I do put a lot of effort in them, but it's a happy sadness. Happy tears will be shed today.
Staff and volunteers are taking our penguins straight down to the protected area where the rest of the colony live. The plan is to release the young birds, including Squeaky, first, followed by Bruiser and the adults, who'll show them the way to go if they get too overwhelmed.
Everyone on the box.
If you guys are ready, we can tip them over.
Little Squeaky is about to get his first view of this brave new world, but he's not quite ready for it.
I don't want to go. Come on, Squeaky.
That is the first time he's ever actually seen the ocean in his life. Okay, there he goes. Off with his friends.
It's all a bit too overwhelming for these young penguins, and Squeaky and his mates aren't quite sure what to make of their new surroundings. But here come the adults to give them a helping hand. Once Bruiser's out of his box, he shows the little blues the way to go.
There we go!
And at last, they're all back where they belong.
As soon as they pass the kelp, you kind of lose track of them. There was apparently a shark sighted here last week, but let's just have faith that they are going to be all right. Instincts will kick in and they'll just sort themselves out. No need for us to help at all anymore. I think what's going through their mind is just pure bliss. They're happy.
Next time,
the bone's exposed.
A badly injured leg leaves a penguin with a bleak future.
The best option would possibly be to put him to sleep.
New arrivals find their voices. And Rocky has a bad feather day.
She's been sitting here shedding these feathers and just looking miserable.